Well, Steven, we're here. We're almost done with Community. I didn't think we'd ever make it, but we made it. And I think, how about, just for old time's sake, we record intro to the podcast just one more time.
Let's do it, Zach. I think we can handle it. If you like what we do here, make sure you mosey on over to patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. For as little as $5 a month, you too can feed a Zach and Steven in need, and you'll get access to all sorts of awesome content. Our weekly live pre-show that we do, You Can't Diss a Pre-Show. We've got some bonus podcasts on there. Days and days, just scads of content over there for you. Plus maybe some new stuff coming soon, so make sure you put your ear to the ground, send us your bones, throw us at least a $5 and see what it'll get you.
Follow us on Twitter over at You Can't Diss a Pod and tell us what show we should talk about next.
If you just can't get enough, watch those patties and come over and double tap us on Instagram over at Can't Disappoint Podcast. We're also on Facebook and YouTube under the whole name of the show, You Can't Disappoint a Podcast. All sorts of vids, things to like, subscribe, and slap the bell to get notified.
After we finish the series finale of Community, we'll still be a weekly community podcast for the rest of 2022 as we conduct a series of community superlative podcasts where we'll be creating top 5 lists on several different community-related topics. Follow us on all our social medias to see how you can be a part of those final podcast episodes.
Speaking of 5, if you think that we're both 5-star men and this is a 5-star show, make sure you leave a review wherever you review your podcasts, on Apple Music, on Yelp, on Spotify, on TripAdvisor. We're there. Just check us out.
Everyone, it has been an honor to do this Community Rewatch podcast for the past few years, and I hope you'll stick around with us as we wrap it up and move on to the next thing. Steven, what do you have to say as we move onward and upward?
Thanks for sticking with us as long as you have. We hope that you hitch your get-alongs to our pick-em-up and ride along with us into whatever the future holds.
All right, and for one of the last times, let's do it. Let's start the episode of You Can't Disappoint a Podcast. Okay. Hi, everybody out there. Welcome to another very special installment of Community Superlatives here on You Can't Disappoint a Podcast. I'm very glad to be back. Hi everybody, I'm Zach. No intro. Didn't put any thought into it. You?
I'm Steven. I feel like I did think of something,
Sure.
but it was like 2 a.m., so I don't remember it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show, everyone. As you can see, we've put as much thought, time, and preparation into this as we always do. I'm glad you've joined us today. We're going to be talking about the top 5 Silver Era episodes of Community. So, Steven and I's top 5 episodes individually from the last 3 seasons of the show. That's what's freshest on our minds, so that should be fun to talk about today. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited, Zach. You know, it's like watching the track and field events at the Olympics, and you're like, okay, the Jamaicans got it locked down, but who's gonna come next? And that's what this list is.
Is that how you feel? That like the top of the list is really obvious, but the like lower spot, or are you just riffing?
I was talking more like the silver era as a whole. That's like, you know, the Jamaicans, they hit
We
their
got
1, 2,
the
3.
heavy lifter out of the way.
Yeah.
Now we can talk about kind of the misloved second child.
Yeah, the middle child,
Yeah.
who, you know, maybe you forget their birthday occasionally.
Yes.
But I mean, who keeps August dates in their calendar anyway, you know?
Look, I am all for forgetting your children's birthdays because I am terrible at remembering people's birthdays. And I completely reject the notion that for somebody to be proven important to your life, you have to remember what day they were born.
No, Zach. That's a pretty standard practice.
I know it
you
is.
know their
but
birthday.
Obviously, like, I know Lily's birthday. I mean, it's 6 days away from mine, so it makes it really easy. But that's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it on the birthdays that I've got
You
down.
usually get my month
Lil.
right.
No, I don't. Because I'm always like, yeah, Steven's good old birthday in shit.
Come on, there was a very special baby born that day.
August? You're laughing at me. That was genuine.
Oh, no.
February.
I think you were thinking August because that was the month that I most recently mentioned out loud. But no.
So when is it?
June, the end of June.
We've had this exact conversation on here before. There are people listening that are yelling that know your birthday more than I do. But Steven, that's not a good example because you are not someone important enough to me that fair. I would remember such a thing.
Well, our assistant reminds us of our anniversaries for each other, you know.
I'll mention here in a second my thought that I had about you we're kind of reconvening after not recording for a few weeks, so it's good to see you. It's good to talk.
I know,
to
as
you.
Opposed to our normal formula of recording 18 things in one day and being
that's
it's you again.
Doing today.
Yeah.
We just haven't done it in a second.
It's true.
Before we get started with the show, of course, we've got to shout out, as always, our $10 and up patrons over at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. Things are still chugging along over there. There's lots of stuff to dig into, a huge back catalog of Patreon-exclusive content, and you're still getting new episodes of Brokeback Bebop and our live You Can't Disagree show all the time over at Patreon. And coming up soon, alongside getting this podcast a week early every week, we're so close to the Good Place era of Zach and Steven's podcasting venture. So there will be more information about that coming out very soon, and it'll be coming first to our patrons. So check it out. Those people that we've got to shout out, of course, are Danny M. Lugo, Mary Baker Budisa, Planeswalker Prez, Emmy Azrael, Brandon Folkemer, and Conversations with Robbie Sherman. We like those people quite a bit.
We do. You know, if I were going to make a sandwich with 6 things on it, it'd be those 6 folks.
6 people. That'd be really uncomfortable for all of them, I'm sure.
Well, big piece of bread.
And then speaking of the big piece of bread that sandwiched us for our childhood era, that is, of course, the man, the myth, the birthday I do not know, at Communities on Twitter. Proud community papa, I'm sure. Very thankful as always for the people at Communities, all the stuff that they're doing all the time to keep the community ball rolling in the months post learning that the movie is coming while we're still waiting on news. Communities is always on top of things to give you something to look at, something about community to celebrate. That stuff's really great, and I'm done not talking about it. Communities is great, and we should talk about it.
Yeah, I wish people would just come to their senses.
I've been silenced on this matter for too long.
Yeah.
I will not be silenced.
You know what? Your voice deserves to be heard, Zach.
Thank you. Well, let's get into it. Before we do our lists, let's catch up a little bit. I know we've both kind of been off living life the last couple weeks and have a few bite-sized, quip-worthy things to share on the podcast. What have you been up to?
Let's see. I've been, I was sick last week. I was out most of the work weeks. So
I feel like whenever we're not doing a podcast, you're sick.
Yeah, it's the only time I allow myself to be sick.
I feel like it's very rarely when we're recording something. If anything, you're usually like on the mend from just having been sick. But I feel like consistently this year, the weeks we haven't recorded, you have been sick.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because it's always something with like my throat or my voice. My throat was shot to shit all last week. I could barely talk most of the days. So it was just getting a little rest. But
now,
it's
were
back
you
in action.
Sick, or had you been spending a few too many nights in the back room of the Neon Light Club in Chicago this week?
I mean, that might have had something to do with
Your throat just absolutely getting
just
torn
shredded.
To shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Battered and bruised.
Right, that'll do it.
But other than that, I've caught up on a lot of anime, which is fun. But what I want to talk about...
What's like the tippy top of your list of what you're watching right now? Tippy top.
Mob Psycho 100, Season 3. It's incredible. Nice. Yeah. Chainsaw Man and Spy Family are close, but Mob Psycho 100 is where it's at.
Blowing you away.
But I watched Bros yesterday, which is a movie we've talked about on the show quite a bit, and I loved it. I thought it was terrific. I thought it was funny. It had a lot of heart to it. It stayed true to what it set out to be, and I think didn't waver or compromise on that at all, and I think that's really cool.
I think it
and Jim Rash was in it.
Jim Rash was in it, and they didn't give him enough of the funny jokes.
No. But what he had was funny.
Great to see in it. He is funny. but like the other people in that table sequence got the best jokes, and it made me a little sad. I wanted lots more Jim Rash, but I loved that he was in it. What you were saying, the movie sets out to do what it set out to do, and I think it does a good job of doing that without feeling like the commercial for gayness that I think it got misattributed as. I also can't help but notice that you went to see that you saw the movie far after you could have supported its success in theaters by throwing it $10.
Well, I
You weren't
ended up
willing
throwing
to
it
be caught dead.
$15 to
Did you have to
rent
pay
it on
to watch
Amazon
it?
Prime.
Isn't it on HBO Max?
I don't know.
Don't you have
didn't
HBO
check.
Max?
Yeah.
I don't think you had to pay for it.
Well, I wanted to.
That's nice. Yeah, give Jeff Bezos those $15 and he'll write it on a piece of paper and give it to the gay people. Good on
Yeah,
ya.
he'll tell him about it.
What else? Anything else you wanna talk about? I'm so avoiding the me starting to talk about something and you going, "Ugh, I'm done. Fine, talk about whatever you want, Zach." When
Zach,
in my head, I'm
that's
like,
all I had
"Steven's
planned
been
to share
talking
from my
for
personal
hours.
life
How could
on
he
this
possibly have more to say?" Huh?
It's your turn, Zachary.
Thank you.
You may have the floor.
I guess the first thing I want to talk
Hear ye.
is I got to spend some time with friend of this podcast, Alex Webster, who was on 2 episodes of the podcast. I think seasons 1 and 3 he showed
Probably.
up for an episode. A good friend of mine who really in high school was like an inspiration for, I always wanted to do filmmaking and storytelling type stuff, and he was the guy at 16 or whatever who had more of a knowledge of how to literally do that. And he's now been like the golden child who moved out of this shithole, kind of like Steven is, and moved to LA, and he's working in television. And he came back home and I've never known Alex as a musical individual, but he came back home to film a music video for an EP that he recorded. Like, it's his project, like an artist alter ego that he has. And I love it. The music is so cool.
That's awesome. The only thing I've ever heard him is, I think one time when we were recording something, he had mentioned a song, or maybe he posted it on Facebook or something, and I heard it, and I was like, oh, I didn't know Alex sang or anything. But
his music, the music video that we recorded is literally just a vibey song about being a loser in Indiana, sitting on your porch and smoking cigarettes and like hanging out with the boys. And his music is really funny, and I don't know, for the type of stuff that I'm into, like the weirdo ween stuff, it's just perfect, like homemade music that's weird and funny.
Awesome.
I'm really excited about it. So whenever that stuff comes out, since I had a small part in helping produce the music video, I think I'll be in it, actually. I think I'll be in the music video.
Ooh, I hope nude. Is it going to be like a Madonna?
Completely nude. Well, that was another thing. So the music video was supposed to be people hanging out in their yards because the song's called Yard Cat. And the day that Alex filmed the music video was like the first big Indiana snow of the year.
Nice.
And 2 days before that, it had been like 70 degrees. So he totally had to scrap his idea. And it almost was more fitting that it's a song about like hanging out and drinking beer in your yard in Indiana. And it was snowing and snow on the ground.
That tracks.
There's a part where someone does get nearly nude and like snow angel on the ground and stuff. We almost gave a guy hypothermia filming that thing.
Nice.
But anyway, whenever that stuff
you gotta
comes
have
out,
risk. You gotta have some edge.
it's one of those things that I was telling Alex that like I think this is good and I believe in this, and I would not just tell you that as your friend. I like it. It's great, and as soon as it comes out, I'll definitely share it through the means that we have because I think it's cool.
That's awesome.
Other stuff I could talk about, but you know us, we're recording 17 of these things in the next 2 hours, so I'll save those for later. I think we've done what we need to do. Do you want to talk about our list for the week?
Let's do it, Zach.
I'm excited to get into this. I almost had the idea, because like most great ideas on this podcast, I heard someone on another podcast do it. I had the idea of, and of course also like this podcast, I hadn't mentioned my idea to you until right now when we're doing it. I wonder if in any way we'd be able to like guess each other's top episode or one of our top episodes from this
I bet
list.
I could probably guess your top 3.
Maybe we should try that, and we won't react to it, and we'll see when we give our list if it's right or not. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the top 5 Silver Era episodes. I'm sure some people will find it contentious to call seasons 4 through 6 the Silver Era because it has its celebrators. And I feel like for the most part, we are that. I think we find stuff to enjoy in season 4. I think we both really enjoyed the vast majority of season 5. And I think we both think that season 6 has a few stellar episodes that took advantage of its new format.
Really good ones.
I was surprised by how many season 6 episodes ended up on my short list of episodes compared to the other 2 seasons, honestly. So what do you think? What do you think is mine?
I bet that I can perfectly guess your top 3.
I doubt it, but let's hear it.
Your number 3 is gonna be Meow Meow Beans episode.
Okay.
Your number 2 is going to be Wedding Videography.
Okay.
And your number 1 is going to be Emotional Consequences of Broadcast Television.
Do you want me to tell you how many you got right, or do you want me to just wait until we do it?
We'll save it.
Okay.
Build the anticipation.
I don't really know what I'm going to say for yours. I don't have a list of episodes in front of me. I feel like Wedding Videography is going to show up on your top 5. I feel like the series finale will show up. I feel like Troy's last episode will show up. And I think there's a chance we'll get a Herstory of Dance in there too for some season 4 love. That's just what comes right to mind.
Okay.
Well, then let's dig into it.
Shall we hop into it?
Are we gonna shotgun it? Go number 5. Oh, I'll do my honorable mentions, of course.
Yeah, I have 3 honorable mentions, Zach,
Okay.
so you didn't feel so alienated.
4.
4? Okay, so we'll hear Zach's top 9.
And
What are your
Steven's
honorable
top
mentions?
8. Shut the fuck up. Do you want to give your top whatever? Go ahead and give me your honorables.
Intergluteal numismatics, app development and condiments, and advanced D&D, which I think is an underrated episode.
All great. One of those episodes is also on my honorable mentions. So these are in no particular order. All honorable mentions. I've got Basic Human Anatomy, the Freaky Friday season 4 episode. I've got Basic Intergluteal Numismatics. That episode was probably the closest to making it into my top 5. I've got Basic Crisis Room Decorum from season 6, the Gave a Dog a Degree episode. And I've got Advanced Safety Features from season 6, the Honda episode.
Nice.
Big fan
it's
of
a
that
good one too.
And going off of that, Steven, what's your number 5?
My number 5, you called it Herstory of Dance. Nice. I know that it is not gonna win any awards. I don't think it's the best episode of the show by any means, but it makes me
ineligible for any awards.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna submit it to the
go
Academy
ahead.
for consideration.
To the Oscars?
Yeah. Dear Academy. Actually, I hope it can win a Grammy.
If Green Book can win, so can this.
La La Land. Oh, wait.
Herstory of Dance.
Herstory of Dance. But I think it's a really funny episode. I think that there are a few moments in the show that make me laugh harder than bear down for...
Not that episode.
Not that episode. But I think that the Sadie B. Hawkins dance...
Sophie B. Hawkins.
Sophie B. Hawkins dance
There you
is
go.
one of the funniest jokes in the show that they tell. There we go.
It is.
Got there.
It's one of those things that you totally should have seen coming, and you don't exactly, and then they play it out really well. It's really good. It's one of those things that's a written and well-decided joke that still comes off as happening in the moment, which is neat. My number 5 is also Herstory of Dance. I think it's a really good episode.
Look at us.
I've softened, big kisses all around. I've softened to season 4 because of how sweet and wearing its heart on its sleeve season 4 is in a way that seasons 5 and 6 aren't. Yeah, it's a really sweet episode, and not in a way, especially in this episode, unlike other season 4 episodes. It doesn't feel hammy. It doesn't feel forced. Pierce gets a sweet moment, which is hard to say for many episodes in the last 3 seasons. But yeah, it's Herstory of Dance is my number 5.
Yeah, it's a good one. My number 4, which is an episode that I think I like more and have more admiration for every time I watch it. And that is Cooperative Polygraphy.
Okay.
I think it's a great episode. I think that the table read definitely added how much it means to my heart, but I think the episode still holds its own. Which, for an episode centering around a character that's not really in the episode.
Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic. I think that it has moments that are really, really funny. It has moments where you're like, oof. And I think that that's when Community's at its best, when it's making you feel multiple things. And I think this episode makes me feel multiple things.
My number 4 is wedding videography. I think
Nice.
you had that as in my top 3, and it is
I did.
not. So that's your first demerit. Wedding videography, I don't have a lot to say about it this time because it's kind of the episode that we've done the most talking about over the last couple months. But it's just a late era, great episode that focuses on the whole study group and still asks questions about, well, what's it like for all the people around them that aren't in this all-inclusive study group? Pretty bad. They're awful. I think the episode does it great while also being a surprisingly solid penultimate episode for the series that gives a lot of the side characters some nice, big final moments before the series ends.
Yeah, I think it's so funny.
Wedding videography, number 4.
My number 3 is going to be emotional consequences of broadcast television.
Okay.
I think it's a great finale, probably instantly catapulted to one of my favorite sitcom finales.
Sure.
I think it's the most inventive
Unique.
one. Yeah. And I think that it does everything that I want a finale to do. It made me feel hopeful. It made me cry. It made me remember all the wonderful times that I had with these characters and how much the show means to me. And I think that is everything you can ask for from the last episode of a show.
And it's really funny consistently throughout it, too. Which a lot of times sitcom finales have so much sentimentality to get to that they don't really have time to bring the funny.
Hello.
That episode really does. What are you waving to?
Hello.
Hello. Oh, sure, I get it.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
My number 3. Do you remember what you said my number 3 would be?
Meow Meow Beans, right?
My number 3 is app development and condiments.
Nice.
Meow Meow Beans. Good guess. I think it's a great episode, and I think for me, it's the type of so weird that Community commits really hard to. So hard, in fact, that you kind of forget that it's so weird and that all of these people are falling into a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It gives us the Coogler. It gives us Hickey's birthday. There's so many. It gives us, well, what about these apples? Joel's stand-up routine in that episode is so solid. Yeah. I love that episode. I think it's a real highlight in the second half of season 5.
It was really, really, really close to being in my top 5. And I don't have a good reason why it's not. I love it so much, but just
Fair.
didn't.
Sure.
You weren't good enough for us today. But thank you. My number 2. You did really well guessing the episodes that were going to be in my top 5, Zach.
Nice.
My number 2 is going to be wedding videography. I think it is one of the
there.
funniest episodes of the entire show. I laugh so hard consistently.
Now my brain is so racked. I have no idea what your number 1 will be.
I know.
It's not the series finale. It's not
wedding videography.
I know what it is.
But I think it's such a funny episode. We've talked it to death at this point, but I could talk more about it. I think it's great. So funny. So. You finally give Garrett, oh my God, he's getting married. This is great. Ah, shit, it's his cousin. Like, that's so funny.
This is very funny. My number 2 is going to be the series finale, Emotional Consequences of Broadcast Television.
Nice.
It's perfect for Community. For Community Season 6, it is the perfect finale that also incorporates a lot of things from the previous seasons to make it a satisfying ending for the whole show. I like it more and more each time I watch it. I find new things to laugh at and new things to make me emotional about every time I watch it. I had a great time talking about it with you. That episode's always going to have a real big part in my heart. That is my number 2, Emotional Consequences of Broadcast Television.
Love it. Okay, my number 1, and I was honestly surprised this got my number 1 spot. Like I was saying, this list was harder for me to put together than the Golden Era, which surprised me because I thought they'd be the other way around. Just because I was going through the 3 seasons, there are so many episodes that I like that mean a lot to me, that make me laugh, that make me cry. And I don't think there's an episode that makes me do those things more pronounced and consistently than geothermal escapism. I think that it's a send-off to my favorite character in the show. It's the kind of completing the arc of one of my two favorite relationships in the show.
What's the other one? Jeff and Annie.
Jeff and Abed. Fuck you. Hickey and Abed, actually. But I think that it's just got so much heart, and I think it perfectly captures that feeling when someone so close to you that's been such a constant in your life, no matter for how long, leaves. And you don't want that to happen. You don't want the game to end, and I think that really resonates with me, and it's such a special episode in my heart, and I think it's one of the best of the show.
Well, my number one is my number one for a lot of the same reasons that you just mentioned, but it's not geothermal escapism, it's cooperative polygraphy. Mm-hmm. I think, for me, that episode personally does a lot of the emotional heavy lifting to make the following episode kind of follow the motions of A Great Goodbye, but this one does the shock of Troy's leaving really well. I also just love, and I think you sell it a little bit short by saying, well, it's the table read that really sells the episode for you, because I don't know, for me, when this episode first aired, this was the episode in season 5's first stretch, even more than Intergluteal Numismatics, that was oh my god, Community has still got it. After season 4 being a middling season full of revelations about other study group members that don't quite make any sense anymore, all of the issues they have with each other in this episode make sense. They build off of all the things we know about these characters and how they would get into each other's skin in a way that I think the show barely did better a few times before and never does this well again. I think it's a hilarious bottle episode. Walton Goggins is so fucking funny as the...
Mr. Winger, I haven't asked a question in 10 minutes.
Not to mention the end tag. He's like, I'm so handsome. You know what? Shots! I think it's such a good episode. I think the moment where Abed says, cool, 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 and the lady says, that's a lie, it hits me in the heart as hard as anything in any of the other episodes we've talked about does. It would show up, I think, in my top 15 episodes of the entire series, maybe top 10. Cooperative Polygraphy, my number one.
It's great. Those are some solid lists, Zach.
Thank you. Let's recap we'll recap our list at the very end. Let's take a look at what the people have said to us. We've got a few top 5 lists that were emailed into us by our listeners and followers, and I'm excited to get into those. Steven, why don't you give us this first one?
All right, our first one is from one of the Matts, and this Matt has number 5. I tried very hard to find 5, but not sure it's possible. Maybe it is, but I doubt it. What the fuck? You think there aren't 5 good episodes in 3 seasons of the show?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what kind of list this
There's 5
Matt.
good episodes.
Is this the same Matt that said goddamn Schmitty 5 times? 4 times? 4 of the 5? God damn it. Okay, number 4, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I really like that episode. I think that the whole Dean Jeff letter scene is so funny.
From my turn, I hug my father.
Number 3, Intro to Knots. Disagree, but okay. It's fine. I don't hate it as much as I could, I guess.
I think it's a little less than fine. I don't think that's a very good episode, personally. Yeah. It's not awful, but it's boring.
It is very boring. Number 2, Geothermal Escapism.
Good choice.
Love the episode. Number 1, Basic Intergluteal Numismatics. I get it. People like Ass Crack Bandit episode a lot. I like it.
That's quite a choice for number 1 of the whole last 3 seasons. But I do vibe with that choice. I can see
nothing from season 6.
Interesting.
Huh.
Interesting. Matt, we got some questions. Come on the show.
Yeah.
Up next, of course, we've got Matt sending in a top 5 Silver Era list. We've got, starting at number 5, Modern Espionage, the final paintball episode. Decent choice. Number 4, Geothermal Escapism, of course, a really good choice to highlight. Number 3, Emotional Consequences of Broadcast Television. Number 2, cooperative polygraphy. And number 1, again, we've got basic intergluteal numismatics.
Wow.
I wouldn't agree with the shuffling of this list, but I do think that is a pretty solid top 5 list. Again, modern espionage just doesn't quite squeak into one of my favorite episodes of the entire show, but I have no problem with it being on this person's list. I think they did a great job. Good list, Matt, if that is your real name.
Yeah. Our next is friend of the show, Brandon Folcomer. Brandon says this was way easier to make than the golden era top 5. Guess that's why it's the silver era. Guess that's why they call it the blues.
Yeah.
Thanks. Number 5, basic intergluteal numismatics. Your 2 cents is changed, so it's banned. Wow,
That's
reading is not my strength today.
Your 2 cents is changed, so it's banned.
Thank you. Number 4, geothermal escapism. Took me a long time to rewatch this one without accidentally listening to "Come Sail Away" by Styx. Yeah, this episode and the pilot of show Linda Cardinelli, Seth Rogen.
Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, Freaks and Geeks. Pilot of that also has a great playing of "Come Sail Away" by Styx. Whole song. 3, wedding videography. One of the funniest episodes of the whole series. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. 2, emotional consequences of broadcast television. If I had no self-awareness, I'd think I'd know. Good one. 1, cooperative polygraphy. Can't decide if I like the table read or the actual episode better. Yeah, I think that's a great list.
I think if you take away like the reunion aspect of the table read, it's definitely.
Well, then what's the point of the table read?
But I'm saying I think the reason people hold it higher isn't because like the quality of the delivery is better than the full acting out of the episode.
Yeah.
It's just the joy of seeing all these people together again, mixed with Pedro Pascal absolutely losing his shit in the middle of the episode.
Yeah.
Great list, though, Brandon. Thanks for writing in.
Great list, Brandon.
We've got one more list. This is from Jennifer. I think we've made Jennifer mad a couple of times because Jennifer, we did that whole thing where she mentioned the art of Discord. No. That's the Schmitty episode.
Yeah, she mentioned the Britta Cadaver episode, right?
What is that episode called? We made a whole thing about it. What's that episode called? Is it The Art of Discourse, or is that the Schmitty episode?
That's the Schmitty episode.
Well, anyway, the reason she picked that episode is it's because the Shirley Annie Buddy Cop movie episode. And we just didn't remember that. And although I still don't think it's one of my favorite homage episodes, if I had remembered that, I wouldn't have shat all over it the way that we did. Steven has no say in the matter. He's just like,
I still don't think that episode's great, but
but Jennifer's top 5 silver
I hold my stance.
episodes.
I hold my position.
We've got a few honorable mentions from Jennifer. She gave us honorably Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, App Development and Condiments, Basic Crisis Room Decorum, Geothermal Escapism, and Ladders. Ladders is a good episode. I remember that episode starts off season 6 in a way that's like, they've still got it. Season 6 is going to be great. And then their list, starting with number 5, is a tie between basic intergluteal numismatics and queer studies in advanced waxing. At number 4, we've got advanced safety features. Good choice. Number 3, cooperative polygraphy. Number 2, G.I. Jeff.
Boo.
I
don't hate G.I. Jeff.
I don't hate it either. I don't love it like that, but I'm happy with that hot take. You're allowed
that is
to
a hot
love G.I.
take.
Jeff.
Jen, we can count on you to really push the envelope here.
I mean, look, my hot take is that I'm not over the moon about Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas.
That's fair.
I think G.I. Jeff is close to as good as that episode, so I'm happy with that. And they've got their number 1, Emotional Consequences of Broadcast Television. That almost was my number 1. That's such a good episode.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Jennifer, for writing that in. We really appreciate it. And that about wraps up this week's Community Superlative. Let's run down our list.
Yeah,
one
let's
more time.
recap.
Steven,
Let's hit my top 5 were Herstory of Dance, Cooperative Polygraphy, Emotional Consequences of Broadcast Television, Wedding Videography, and Geothermal Escapism.
And for me, number 5, also Herstory of Dance. Number 4, Wedding Videography. Number 3, App Development and Condiments. Number 2, Emotional Consequences of Broadcast Television. And number 1, Cooperative Polygraphy. Steven, this has been fun. I love putting these lists together, and I like trying to, rationalize why each of us has put what where. This is a fun
Yeah, I like
for
it.
us
For
to
people
be in.
who really like ranking and scoring things, this is, just pleasing me in all the right ways.
I agree. Before we hop off the pod to please each other in all types of ways, next week we're going to be back to talk about the top 5 plot lines we would have liked to see in Community's
I'm so excited
run.
for that.
It'll be a different kind of list because we're just going to have... We've been rewriting Community for 3 years. We're about to have a little pitch session. I think we're going to give each other our ideas and then kind of like riff off of them and see how good of an idea for the show we think it is. You know what I mean? That'll be a lot of fun. So join us next week for that. And outside of that, if you like what we do here and you want to support us, patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast is the place to do that. We've got Brokeback Bebop. We've got You Can't Diss a Pre-Show. A lot of stuff going on over there. Patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. Steven, where else can the people find us for free?
You know, if you want to get a peek at our silver era, come on over to Twitter and follow us over at You.
We haven't begun to peak.
Over at Can't Disappoint Podcast. No. That's not our Twitter. Over at You Can't Diss a Pod.
There you go.
We're also on Instagram, the place, if in case Twitter dies, since everyone thinks that's going to happen. I think it's not. But
it might suck now, but it's not going to go anywhere.
yeah, Twitter's not going to stop being a thing. You know, why didn't we pay the $8 for our blue check mark, Zach? But
look, I'm not above it.
I'll fucking do it. I don't care. I'll pay 16. Give us 2.
Couple more patrons and we're verified, baby.
But follow us over on Twitter at You Can't Diss a Pod. We're also on Instagram over at Can't Disappoint Podcast. We're on Facebook and YouTube under the whole name of the show, You Can't Disappoint a Podcast. We're going to be doing an end of the show comprehensive roundtable soon. If you want to see our smiling faces, that's the place to do it.
Well, Steven, it's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to do this again next week. From inside the Dreamatorium, Black Lives Matter, I'm Zach.
I'm Steven.
We love you very, very much, and we'll see you next time. Eat your greens, please.
Eat those greens.
Don't let's start. I've got a weak heart and I don't get around how you get around. When you are alone, you are the cat, you are the phone, you are an animal. The words I'm singing now mean nothing more than me out to an animal. Wake up and smell the cat food in your bank account. But don't try to stop the tail that wags the hound. World destruction over an overture. And do I need a positivity? Need this touch? Don't let's start. This is the worst part.